Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church.
Welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast. I am Carmen Bauer, the Director of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sioux City.
And I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese.
Thank you for joining us in the new year. Today we have two guests from two different areas of the diocese. First, we have Grace Lange, Director of Campus Ministry for Bishop Heelan Catholic Schools in Sioux City, as well as Father Jake Rosenmeyer, the Chaplain for St. Edmond Catholic Schools in Fort Dodge. He is also the parochial vicar for Holy Trinity Parish of Webster County. They will explain how their roles, as well as other chaplains and campus ministers in the diocese, are crucial to maintaining the Catholic identity in our diocesan Catholic schools. So welcome, Grace and Father Rosenmeyer.
Glad to have you both here. So as we get started, it'd be helpful maybe to know a little bit of your background, kind of how you got to where you are. It's for a little bit of context. So I think we'll ask each of you to share a little bit about your background and how that led you to your position in the school. And Grace, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us today, guys. A little bit about me. I am originally from the small town of Lange, South Dakota, so just about 2 hours north of Sioux City here. I attended college at Briarcliff University studying exercise physiology. So I was on the plans of occupational therapy, going through those tracks, really found a love for pediatrics, working with children of all different sorts. And as I was entering into my senior year of college, I remember walking out of an exam, like one of my last exams of junior year, and being like, I'm not fulfilled here. I'm really, really good at this, and I'm just not fulfilled. So surrounding this came a lot of questions and conversations around, like, who am I? What am I meant to be doing right now? Like, what does it mean that I'm good at this, but, like, not drawn to this? And a lot of that was centered with the chaplain at the time, who still is, up at Briarcliff, Father Karate, and having all these conversations. And he just, like, proposed this really simple invitation to me of, like, why don't you come explore ministry up at Bishop Heelan? At the time, I was also working in campus ministry at Briarcliff. I had been working there for a couple of years. So I had this kind of, like, small in. I worked up in the Sioux Falls Diocese as a summer missionary up there in their, like, Totus Tuus program called Lumen Christi. And I knew I had a heart for ministry. I knew I always wanted to give back in some way, shape, and capacity as I entered into my adult life post-college, but I didn't know quite what that looked like. So Father Karate kind of just gave me this space to explore what could that look like in realms of a Catholic school. And I worked part-time my last semester of my senior year up at Briarcliff and ended up accepting a job up here as the director following that May. So I've been up here since then. I love it. Bishop Heelan's become a nice little home and a nice family for me. So
great.
That's a little bit about who I am.
We're glad you're here. So, Father Jake, I know your path is extremely different, and you probably didn't have as many choices as far as where you're going to work. So, do you want to share with us a little bit of that and maybe some of your history with Bishop Garrigan?
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks, Dawn and Carmen. It's great to be back again on the podcast. As many people know, I grew up in Sioux County. I went to Garrigan, and then I also went to Briarcliff. Go Chargers.
Go Chargers.
2015 grad. And so I began my kind of adult career teaching at Garrigan, where I was there for 4 years, and then I worked heavily in campus ministry as well. And then I went to seminary. After I was ordained in June, the bishop asked me to come to Fort Dodge and Humboldt and work and be the chaplain with St. Ed's. And so I'm here now. I guess I would say I have a love for Catholic education. I get a lot of flack across the board from both the Garrigan community and the St. Ed's community about which one I like more. But for me, it's really, I don't care what Catholic school I'm at. I have a strong passion for Catholic education that was instilled in me from both my parents and some of my grandparents who all benefited from Catholic schools in our diocese. And so for me, that ministry piece, working with our youth, especially in the school setting, has always kind of drawn me. I had some really awesome teachers as a high schooler and then at Briarcliff. And so I love, just being in the school, working with kids. I think Catholic education is one of the core ministries of the Catholic parish. So it's a great joy for me every day to come to work.
And St. Ed's is lucky to have you. So, Grace, when you were talking with Father Crotty about the possibility of going to Heelan, we're guessing that it never kind of popped in your head, hey, I'd like to go work in a Catholic school, or was that just totally?
No, that's a good question. I hadn't been exposed to any form of Catholic education outside of my college experience up at Briarcliff. So the idea of a Catholic school to me was like, okay, I am entering this, not really sure what that looks like. The only exposure I had, the closest Catholic school to me was 30 minutes up in Del Rapids, South Dakota. And my sister-in-law had gone there, didn't really know much about what actually was a Catholic school, what did that look like in a high school context. So this idea of like Catholic education was new to me, and I still feel like I'm learning that, especially as I've entered into coming on my second year here now. But I was simply just saying yes to what was proposed to me, saying yes to what was in front of me at the time. I don't think there was ever like this huge desire of like, yes, Catholic school, Catholic education, but I was able to have just this simple yes to what was proposed, and I am still learning, and I'm loving it. I mean, I never would have expected that Catholic schools operate in the way that they do, especially as a campus minister. Like, what does that look like for me in a high school setting versus what I actually worked for in college? Kind of navigating those differences, navigating what does that mean for me now?
Definitely. Well, and Father, you have served in different capacities in Catholic education, and I'm sure even when you were a student, you had some leadership roles up there. I would imagine, knowing your personality and everything. So can you kind of differentiate for us the different roles you as a theology teacher, a religion teacher, versus now as a chaplain, and then where campus ministers fill in? You know, what's valuable about having all of those roles present within a school building?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that always strikes me is when I was teaching, I had a full class load, plus I was half-time, three-quarter time campus minister. I had our other religion teacher also did campus ministry. There was two of us, but he was also the athletic director, so I was kind of taking on more. And it always struck me that if I just was a religion teacher, I'd have been a solid religion teacher. If I was just the campus minister, I could have done a lot more. It's hard when you're doing both of those things to kind of balance it. We're very fortunate at St. Ed's. We have a full-time campus minister, Brian McLean, who has kids in the system and has been around for a long time. And he does a lot of kind of the groundwork. So I kind of can just kind of float in and out when I need to. But the role, I think, shifts now that I'm a priest. Obviously, the sacramental piece, I can do all those things. I can hear confessions. I do our school mass once a week. I help plan some of our, prayer services and things like that. But I would say one of the interesting things I've noticed just in these first couple of months, I think a lot of times we focus on the fact that our students need to be catechized, our students need to grow in the faith, but our teachers, they have a strong desire to grow in the faith as well. And so I've been trying to put a little more of my effort and energy into what our faculty and our staff need and what their desires are to grow in the faith and what we can do to help them kind of deepen their relationship with God. So I'd say that's a big difference. As a priest, I can kind of enter into that, whereas a layman, as a teacher, campus minister, I wasn't able to do that as much. So that's kind of a big difference, I would say. But at the end of the day, it's a good thing to have in our schools. I know we have a priest shortage. I know budgets are tight and things like that, and it can be hard to kind of maybe validate the salary of a campus minister or things like that. But we live in a world where our kids need to grow deeper in their faith and they need help with that. So in my head, it's just a no-brainer. Like, we need to throw as much support as we can towards that.
Certainly, and I know our Catholic schools have put so much emphasis on that life of discipleship, not just passing along the knowledge of the faith, but also teaching kids how to live the faith and how to develop that relationship with Jesus. So all of those roles are so important within the school system. Now, Grace, as a campus minister over at Heelan, there is a chaplain there as well for our listeners. Father Crotty serves in that role. But can you tell us a little bit about your role in campus ministry? Take us through a day in the life of Grace.
Yeah, I mean, as a campus minister, especially in a school system this big, every day is a little bit different. But I'd say we have four main pillars to what we're trying to accomplish in a week. And that's like prayer and liturgical life, always number one. How are we providing the sacraments for our student? How are we praying with them? Formation. Father Rosenmeyer said this, but formation of the staff is huge. So that's something we've had a very large emphasis on the last couple of years of how are we implementing professional developments where we're actually catechizing our staff members? How are we doing that in a way where we can actually meet them where they're at? Because we have teachers who have been living the faith their entire lives, and we have non-Catholic teachers as well in our school system. So trying to bridge some of those gaps along with formation of the student, that comes naturally, working with the theology departments, working with different principals, XYZ. Community building and outreach is our third pillar of just, okay, what are we doing to actually create a community for not only our students, but the faculty and staff, and also just Heelan as a system wide? What does that look like? What does outreach look like in these different forms? And the last one is just this evangelization and witness culture and pillar that we try to succeed. So this life of discipleship that you talked about, Carmen, that's something we have a huge, huge emphasis on of how are we walking with the student towards living a life of companionship where we're walking towards God, rooted in these virtues, rooted in faith, walking towards holiness together, especially as a younger campus minister. What does that look like to have kind of that role model and that mentor? I'm really lucky. I work in a building where we have 3 campus ministers, myself along with Nick Sheffers, young Briarcliff graduate as well, and then Deacon Kevin Poss, who provides such a beautiful outlook of this wisdom of the faith, what it looks like to do ministry throughout all of his years of ministry. I'm really lucky. I work in this role with these guys who are able to like see the faith from all these different views of I'm now a married young woman, Nick, who's an engaged man, Deacon Poss, who's been living the married life, also has, you know, his own calling as a deacon, but being able to approach students in this way where, I don't know, we can really formate the whole person. That's been huge. So an average day for us, it's chaotic. I spend quite a bit of time meeting with students one-on-one, doing these one-on-one discipleship meetings, talking with teachers, asking it, how's it going in your classroom? Are there any students that maybe I should be aware or like pulling into my office if there's any situations coming up? A lot of planning, outreach events, right? So today we have our Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe coming up at the time we're recording here tomorrow. So it's going out, figuring out like, are we going to do something fun for that? How are we going to like, I don't know, support that, especially in a school where we have a large Hispanic and Latino culture here. And with our diocesan patrons, like what a beautiful opportunity to do something. It's planning retreats, recruiting for that, just trying to build this community where students feel safe and this invitation to, I don't know, be brought into something more. I feel like every day is just striving a little bit towards that. So nothing's ever the same. We're trying to continue to go back to those 4 pillars of how are we doing in prayer and liturgical life? How are we formating students and teachers? How are we building our community? And how are we actually evangelizing and witnessing that culture to everyone in the system? So I don't know, as ministry is, it's always a little chaotic, but I live for that life, so I do like it.
I must say we have Briarcliff to thank for this episode, nothing else, but for forming some of our faith leaders. So I didn't go to Briarcliff, so I will do a little shout out. And speaking of that, Father Jake, weren't you homecoming king while you were at Briarcliff?
Yes, I was. That is not my crowning moment at Briarcliff. I would rather point to my work in the athletic department or my involvement in campus ministry. But yes, thank you, Don, for that.
Just a little blast from the past.
Grace, do you have a royal heritage as well at Briarcliff?
I was also homecoming queen.
Yes!
19. So maybe that's just a trend of Briarcliff.
Wow.
I might have to ask Deacon Poss if he ever had any royal blood in his
I think that question needs to be posed.
There's some royalty with us today.
And I didn't know about Grace being homecoming queen, so there you go. Thanks, Briarcliff. Anyway, back to the questions at hand. So you're talking a little bit about both of you talk about your day and kind of your roles and so forth. So I didn't go to Catholic school. I know Carmen did not, but her children do. So we know there's also religion class and religion teachers and so forth. So maybe help us understand how your role, how you mesh with that. I'm assume that you work together and you're all, of course, teaching the same theology and modeling that. So maybe Grace first, how is it that you collaborate then with those who have students in class for religion?
Yeah, so that's a place I feel like we're always trying to grow in. We're really trying to differentiate what does it mean to be in a theology class versus what does it mean to be in campus ministry, because they're not the same. I really try and take the theology classes, right? It's an educational component. It's this piece of we're learning the faith, we're learning like these dogmas, doctrines, XYZ, where campus ministry takes more of this like, yeah, we have these formative pieces and these formative elements that we collaborate with in the theology classrooms and outside of that as well, but we're also taking more of this companion walk, this companionship approach, this walk of discipleship with them. I would say our collaboration here at our school, though, is so, so great. Our theology teachers are so supportive of the campus ministers coming into class and teaching maybe on something that's a little bit different than what's outside of their curriculum at the time, but like fits in. Because sometimes that piece of just having someone else come in and talk about it can be so, so helpful for students, especially for campus ministers. That gives us a chance to, have more engagement with the students, more face time, because my office, it's an open door, but I can't just pull people in and force them in, where this actually gives me FaceTime with them. I don't know. So our collaboration works in just all these different realms of like, okay, what does it mean to be an educational piece, but what does it mean to have this companionship piece? And it's been really cool to see the support that the religion teachers have for campus ministry and the support campus ministry has for religion teachers. We're always asking them, what are you doing in class? Where can we fit into this? Whether that's if they're talking about vocations, we have a deacon here present and available. Super awesome for us, right? We have a chaplain, we have married life, we have a guy who's engaged, right? So we get to have these different components, especially just with a team of 3, where we can kind of dig into these different classes in different ways. It's really cool too to see some of that infiltrating itself into the other subjects in the school, right? We get invited into science classes. What does it mean for evolution and Catholics? What does that mean, especially for our non-Catholic teachers? That can be a really hard approach to take in a Catholic education realm. Anatomy and physiology, what the heck does that have to do with the faith? You have 3 campus ministers who have backgrounds in biology and science. So being able to see some of this starting to infiltrate into other classrooms too has just been such a unique experience, I feel, that I wasn't expecting to come into. But our collaboration is just so, so good with the theology department. I'm so, so thankful for all of our religion teachers here at Heelan.
Thank you. So, Father Rosenmeyer, I'm sure it doesn't work exactly the same at St. Edmond, and of course you have the experience at Bishop Garrigan as well. So how is it that you and your campus minister work hand in hand, I assume, with your religion teachers at St. Ed?
So we have a bit of a smaller department for religion, but our K-12 religion teachers all meet monthly. So the campus minister and I, we attend those meetings, and I actually take a little part of the meeting to talk about things in campus ministry that are coming up. And so we meet, we talk to that, we're a resource. We started off the year by doing classroom visits to all the religion classes, K-12, which was really helpful just to kind of explain our roles, campus ministry. I also help kind of our head of theology on the curriculum side, looking at, new texts. Do we need to adjust some of the classes we have and things like that? So we work, I would say, pretty closely, pretty well together. We help each other out when we can. I try to bop into religion classes from time to time. I was just up in, actually, Grace, you reminded me of this. I was up in a science class 2 weeks ago talking about, genetic testing and what the church teaches about that. And so I think just working with the religion team and then trying to work out from that of trying to build, how can we bring the faith into all of our levels of classes and grade levels and things like that. It's interesting now as a priest, I can say a little bit more. I can get away with a little bit more than I could probably as a lay campus minister, which is nice. I can kind of come in and flow if I want. I can knock on the door, and most people are pretty receptive and welcoming. I try to respect classroom time, but I try to let them know if I'm going to come in. But once in a while, you make just a surprise visit. And as a priest, you can do that, and people don't get too worked up, which is nice. So
it's kind of fun for you. You've got both sides of that and how that's working as a priest or as a layperson. So it's kind of neat getting your perspective on that. So we'll give you each a chance to have the final word so that our Catholic school parents, because you're not the only chaplains and campus ministers in the diocese. There are others. You're just the two lucky ones that we called upon for today. So what would you want parents or maybe a Catholic school alumnus, alumna, or supporters of our Catholic schools to know about campus ministries in the schools today? We'll let Grace take it first.
I think the big thing I would ask, or just make parents aware of, is that this is a real thing. This invitation that we propose to the students is the same invitation we're proposing to the parents too. You are the primary formators of your child. And so just the support in that of please continue to formate and educate your child in the home. It makes our jobs really hard and difficult when we're starting from that ground zero level. So just have an openness to what your child's encountering at school. I know a lot of our children here in the Catholic school systems aren't all necessarily Catholic or aren't coming from practicing Catholic families, but know that the proposal we're giving them is the same proposal we propose to the parents, that there is a life more for you. There's something more for you, that you're being invited into something more. So I would just ask parents for just that openness that what my child receiving at school can still affect me. The same God who's working in the building is the same God who's working in my own heart, in my own home. I would just ask for, the support and the openness from the parents there.
Thank you. Father Jake?
I would echo what Grace said, but I would just add also the life of campus ministry. I think when we hear that term, it can be easy to say, well, that's not that necessary. They're already in the Catholic school, but, we're living not in the world of Christendom. We're living in an apostolic age where we have to work very hard to catechize and to share the faith. And so the campus ministers, the priests, chaplains, all could benefit from prayers from the diocese, certainly, number one. But number two, just reinforcing what your students are learning, what your kids are learning at school. You're sending them to the Catholic school, but that's not the whole part. Families have to be involved and active in church as well, and be receptive, like Grace said, to that presence of God that might be acting in the life of the school, also can act in the life of the family. And so I think it's really important just to reinforce with your students constantly what they're learning in school, because that then will hopefully help, families and parents deepen their own faith life. We have a lot of Catholic school alumni in the diocese, and we have a lot of awesome Catholic schools. And I think a lot of us would have been supremely grateful for more of a campus ministry type presence, and would have benefited probably a lot more greatly from that back in the day. I would just encourage continuing supporting your campus ministers and your priest chaplains, because they're on the ground doing the hard work every day. It's not always easy to deal with, high schoolers in the morning.
Not bad.
One of the best parts of my job, I stand out with our campus minister and I welcome kids in the morning. And some days it's a lot of smiles, and other days it's a lot of don't even look at me right now. So it's a fun challenge.
Sounds great. Thank you both.
Well, thank you both to Grace and Father for joining us on the podcast just to share a little bit more about how you're shining a light in our Catholic schools. And I just appreciate all that you do. Your witness is so valuable to all of us. High school is such a fun time of life, and to be able to integrate the faith and to help young people integrate the faith into that part of their life, I think is so important. So thank you for joining us, and also prayers for your ministry and your continued work. And thank you for listening to today's Illuminating Catholics and learning more about campus ministry in the Diocese of Sioux City. New episodes drop each Tuesday wherever you get your podcast, the Diocese of Sioux City's YouTube channel, or at lumenmedia.org.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.